Hi, I'm here in Burlington, and we're going to interview today Dan Lietha from Answers in Genesis. Let's hear today exactly what Dan does at Answers in Genesis and what his wife and daughter's up to too, today on People of Northern Kentucky. Welcome to People of Northern Kentucky.
Hi, Joy.
Now, I know that you're originally not from Northern Kentucky. Can you tell me a little bit about where you're from, your history, and how you ended up here?
Sure. Well, I was born in Marquette, Michigan, which is part of the Upper Peninsula. And so most people think of Michigan as the mitten part, but there's a beautiful part way up on top. In fact, I've got some artwork that I used to do back in the my Upper Peninsula days that I can show you.
Okay.
After high school, I did a lot of cartoons for the mining journal, the local paper there, and this was one of the projects that I did during that time. It's my UP calendar. People from the Upper Peninsula are called Yoopers, so got a lot of Yooper humor in here. So Marquette's right there, so I actually grew up on the South Shore of Lake Superior, beautiful area. And back in my elementary school days, I remember drawing dinosaurs a lot. That was one of my favorite things to draw. And my school teachers didn't appreciate them too much. And I remember some of my teachers saying, "Why can't you draw something more constructive?" And I kind of laugh about that because I didn't listen to them. And if we flash forward to now, I'm drawing dinosaurs for a living. So
Right.
sometimes I say you shouldn't listen to your teachers, but most time I say you should. But my art career started as a young boy in school. And entered lots of competitions as best I could, took all the art classes I could in high school, and then after high school I went to the Joe Kubert School of Cartoon and Graphic Art in Dover, New Jersey, and that was a 3-year course, graduated there, and then I went back to Marquette and worked at a roller rink and did all kinds of art projects for the newspaper and did a few miscellaneous jobs, and then I found out that there was a gal in Minnesota that I became interested in. So I moved there and actually got my first professional full-time cartooning job at a place called Mellow Smello.
Mellow Smello.
Yeah.
All right.
So, and I worked there for about 5 years, and that was a company that produced a lot of children's products. The name comes from their scratch and smell stickers, which they're famous for. So I was one of the staff cartoonists, and so I did a lot of scratch and smell stickers. These are some window clings. I did some of the fun restaurant placemats for Chi-Chi's, and came up with all the puzzles. And in fact, even in this one right here, I hid my name in the donkey's rear end right there.
Oh my goodness.
So I had a lot of fun with that. But a lot of the things here, as you can see, have dinosaurs in them.
I was going to say, so your teachers were wrong because you immediately started making money with dinosaurs.
That's right. It was a natural thing for me to do, and so they sent a lot of the dinosaur stuff my way. And actually, it was during my time in Marquette, Michigan, before I moved to Minnesota, that I first found out about Ken Ham. And it was part of my church singles group at that time, and I heard a 12-part video message by him and Gary Parker, and creation for me was always an interest. But at that time, after hearing those messages, it became a passion of mine. And so I started becoming really hungry for those materials and sought out lots of videos and books and all the stuff that I could find. When I moved to Minnesota then, I spent a lot of time at this job with a boombox and a cassette deck on my desk, and I would draw and listen to Ken Ham tapes all the time, and so I was thinking about it a lot, and I ended up coming up with a comic strip based on a lot of the information that I was hearing in the Ken Ham talks, and that was called Creation Wise. And so then after a couple years, I found out Ken Ham was going to be coming to our area in Minnesota, so a friend of mine said, "Hey, you should send some samples to Ken Ham." So I sent him some samples, and I got a little message on my phone a few weeks later saying, "Hey, we need a children's book to be drawn. Can you do that for us?" And so I did that for them, and then I did a couple years of volunteer work for Answers in Genesis, And then in 1997, they hired me full time. So that's how I came to the northern Kentucky area.
So at first you were in Minnesota doing the work.
Yes, I
there.
did 2 years of volunteer work for Ken Ham there, and then we moved here.
Now you told me a little bit about this work you did for Taco Bell and several others.
Yeah, this
dinosaur work.
This was a freelance job that I did for Mellows Mellow, some work on the side, and it's interesting again that it has to do with dinosaurs. And this freelance work here earned me the money to propose to that girl that I moved to Minnesota for. So I bought her the engagement wedding ring with the money that I earned from this job
awesome.
right here.
A cool story.
So those dinosaurs are continuing to be a blessing to me.
That's right, because it brought you Marcia and ultimately Hannah also. Yes. Oh, cool. Well, you can get back in your desk now because this is an awesome desk. As a cartoonist, I guess you do a lot of just sitting work. And so now you've got your little bicycle desk.
Yeah,
you can do your
it's,
work and bicycle at the same time.
I love being a cartoonist, but one of the downfalls is that you're sitting all the time. And so I've been trying to come up with ways to get more exercise into my day. So when I'm at home doing work and I'm working on the computer, I sit here at my exercise bike that works with this desk, and I can sit here and watch a movie or surf on the web or do work or whatever it is and get some exercise too.
Fun. Now, so you became a cartoonist with Answers in Genesis. For those that don't know, exactly what is Answers in Genesis and what does that have to do with the Creation Museum and the Ark Encounter? Who are they exactly?
Answers in Genesis is a biblical authority ministry, and so we're contending for the faith, and we specialize in the area of the book of Genesis that a lot of people try to say it's not true, that millions of years can be worked into the Bible somehow, that God didn't mean 6 days when he said 6 days. And atheists love to fire shots at the book of Genesis because they know if they can take that out, they can take the rest of the Bible with it. And so we think it's a very important thing to be able to defend Genesis, defend all of Scripture from the very first verse to the last verse, but our focus is on the foundational book where it all started in the book of Genesis. And so Ken Ham and 2 other men started in California. Well, Ken Ham started in Australia, but they were with the ministry, the Institute for Creation Research back in California. And then they moved in 94, I think it was, to the northern Kentucky area to begin the ministry Answers in Genesis. And they picked this area because they said that they can get to 2/3, I think, of the population of the United States within a day's drive. So it's very central as far as the population of the whole United States. And it's really a crossroads because of the highway system that we have. Everybody that's going west seems to go through this area, or north and south or east. People go through the Cincinnati area, so this is a great hub to be part of.
And so Answers in Genesis is sort of like the umbrella company ministry, and then Creation Museum got started here.
Right. Well, the ministry started with Ken Ham as the main speaker, and we would go out and do events, speaking events, and then his dream, which he came up with back in Australia, was to build a creation museum so that people that would come to see us would be able to see displays and exhibits that proclaim the truth of Genesis. And so that was eventually achieved, and it opened up 10 years ago, coming up in Memorial Day. I think we're going to be celebrating our 10-year anniversary for the Creation Museum. And then once the Creation Museum was in place, we've had, I can't remember the number now, I think it's over 1.5 million people that have come to see the Creation Museum. He set sights on building a life-size replica of Noah's Ark. And so now we have the Ark Encounter, and millions of people are going to be seeing that. And again, I don't know at this time, I'm not sure what the exact numbers are, but I think we're probably going to be close to rivaling the entire 10 years of the Creation Museum within the first year or so of the Ark Encounter being open.
That's bringing a lot of people to northern Kentucky.
So yes, Answers in Genesis is the parent company or parent ministry of both of those wings of the ministry.
Okay. And your role there is the cartoonist.
Yeah.
Right. I do know I get the newsletter, so I see your cartoons in the newsletter there. What other places have your cartoons been?
Well, the newsletter is a good place to start because my Creation-Wise comic strip is featured in the newsletter and has been since even before I was employed full-time with AIG. That was actually the sample that I created, or the comic strip that I created back in Minnesota was Creation-Wise. And then, that's being still used in the newsletter. Back in about 2000, I came up with an idea to have a cartoon for the internet, for the web, that people could share and bring people to our website, answersandgenesis.org. And so I came up with After Eden, and that's a one-panel little. It started out as more of a funny cartoon, more of a gag comic strip, but not sacrificing biblical integrity for humor. Sometimes I hear from people saying, "Why can't you're drawing Bible cartoons? Why are you making fun of the Bible?" And they're missing the point, because I'm trying to bring out truth in the Bible. God is our creator. He made humor too. He didn't just make serious things. And so I think there's room to be a little humorous with Scripture, as long as you're not stepping on the biblical truth or bending it or warping it. And so I try to do that with the After Eden cartoons. That's more of my humor tends to be in the After Eden cartoon. Then I have a third comic strip or a comic feature called Let There Be Truth in Answers magazine.
Okay.
And then most of my other time is filled up doing the slides for the speakers, primarily Ken Ham. So if you see them speak somewhere and they use their visuals up on the screen, a lot of those images and cartoons and such are
The
things that I've
PowerPoints or
worked
whatever
on.
that are in behind them will
Yeah.
highlight a lot of your illustrations.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, that's cool. Well, I have met your wonderful wife, Marcia, and your daughter, Hannah. And y'all are homeschooling parents, correct?
We are, yes.
Yes. How long have you been homeschooling?
Well, as long as Hannah's been around, so she's 13 years old now, and 7th grade, so she's just entering the middle school years, and so Marcia's been the primary educator in our house. I supplement a little bit here and there. In fact,
Yes.
Hannah's, we just got her a Wacom tablet, a digital tablet, and I've been giving her some art lessons on the computer, and she's been quite adept at
That's
figuring
awesome.
things out all by herself, so she's pretty motivated that way.
Yeah, that is so awesome. I saw a photo of her with her new equipment.
Yep.
But how awesome to get lessons from her artist dad.
Yeah, but again, Marcia is the one that does most of the educating,
Yes.
and I really appreciate her efforts in that regard.
So Dan, the way I met you was caricature. So I do know you do caricatures also, because you did it at Chick-fil-A one time. So tell me a little bit about how you got into that and where and when you do that.
Well, caricatures was something that I picked up when I was a kid too. I read a lot of Mad Magazine as a kid. I don't know if I should admit that, but loved a lot of the artists that drew from Mad Magazine. And so I learned how to draw caricatures kind of from watching or looking at their artwork. And it took me a while, but I think it was after high school, I started drawing live caricatures. And I just did it every once in a while. It's kind of a fearful thing to draw faces in front of people, but that's something that I do occasionally here at the Creation Museum on Saturdays.
Okay.
I'll pick up my stuff and set up in the museum and draw faces on Saturdays. So that's something I enjoy. It's a good little extra income, and it's a lot of fun to chat with the people too.
Oh, well, fun. Well, we were talking about Marcia and Hannah, your wife and daughter, and I'd like to bring them in now and talk to them for a few minutes too. So if y'all want to come in here. Because we were talking about the homeschooling aspect, and y'all been homeschooling ever since Hannah has been born, I guess you can say. Yes. But also I know that you do a little extra side thing, and you've got on your jump roping outfit here. So tell me, how did y'all get involved in jump rope performances or whatever? Exactly what is it that you're doing?
There was a post on one of the homeschool Facebook pages. And a homeschooling mom in the area, she had jumped rope when she was a kid, and she felt the Lord leading her to start a jump rope team. So she posted that on the page just to see if anyone was interested, and she got a great response. So that's how we heard about it, and so we decided to give it a try. So we are starting our 3rd year.
3rd year, and it's called Heart and Soul Skippers.
Yep.
Right? So what do you do?
Well, we're mainly a performance jump rope team, like she said, and we just go around, do school demos, and perform, and we have different levels of skill, and we've got our practice is split into 2 practices now, varsity and JV, and
All right.
it's pretty fun.
So did I hear you're going to start some competition too?
Hopefully next year.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So I know you like jump roping, but what other things do y'all like to do here in Northern Kentucky?
We especially like to go to the zoo. We try to do homeschool days at the Newport Aquarium. And we do cross the river farther north and go to Dayton too, to the, what is that?
At the Air Force
The
Museum.
Air Force
Yeah.
Museum.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's been a really fun thing.
Yeah, and around here we do love to go to the arboretums. The parks around here are great.
Yes.
We bike ride or walk or spend a lot of time just on cool evenings walking around enjoying the beauty.
Nice.
He likes to go yard sailing.
Oh,
Yeah, that's-
you're a yard seller.
Yeah, and it's funny that this area is part of the world's longest garage sale.
Yes.
And as much as I love yard sailing, and people know that I'm a hardcore yard sailor, I think I've only been to that once or twice.
Oh.
So I
And
need
it
to
comes
take.
right next
I need
to
to
you.
take
Come on,
advantage.
Dan. Well, what do you think is your favorite thing in general about Northern Kentucky, about living here? Because y'all haven't always lived here. So, well, you have.
Yeah.
I haven't always lived here. So,
Well, being from the north, I'm originally from North Dakota, right on the Canadian border. And so I like the late fall, early spring, short winters. I do like that.
Yeah, the winters are pretty wimpy.
well,
The upper,
for y'all they are.
upper peninsula,
I'm
you
from
know.
the south, but for y'all, they are wimpy winters. Okay.
So the mild winters around here are great.
Yes.
And the fact that we live in Burlington, there's a nice touch of country around here. We love the farms and the different livestock and the crops and such. And then, but it's not too far away from, going into more of a city setting and
Yes,
getting what
because
you
you're
need out
only,
there,
what,
too.
30 minutes away from downtown Cincinnati here,
Right.
right? So,
Right, and we can get to everything we need locally in like 15 minutes.
yeah.
So that's
So
really
rural
nice.
and
Yes,
close to the
it's
city.
a very nice
Yeah.
combination.
Yes.
Yeah, and there are some great attractions too, like the Creation Museum and the Ark Encounter.
Awesome, yes. Make sure you get that in, Dan. Well, thank you very much for interviewing with us today on People in Northern Kentucky.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. Every Thursday at 10 a.m., get to know your neighbor by catching a new edition of People of Northern Kentucky.